Okay.
We had to adjust volume, so we're starting this again.
Alrighty then. This is Free Range, and this is Gail of Gaia, and this is Scott with us today, and we're going to talk about some of the things that are affecting planetary consciousness of people and so on.
Yeah, we were talking about, before we adjust the volume a little bit, about how many people in the UFO and disclosure communities, I don't follow any of them. I don't watch their work. I don't have time to do it and do what I'm doing here. But I get feedback from other people that they're working with a lot of fear of the future. And when they do that, that distorts their perceptions of truth. And it gets mixed up with doubt and fear and speculation and theory and all the things that don't really benefit other people. Because wherever there's fear of the future involved, it will be a distortion of what truth really is in every field. So it's really important, and I understand that a lot of these people are throwing stones at each other, you know, fighting for their fan base and for books and money and stuff like that. So they're competing with each other in negative ways, which just means they're divided and conquered already. Classified system, all you got to do to control people is keep them in doubt, which is backed by fear, and behind fear is terror. Terror of knowing what really happened to you before you came to this earth with little or no memory intact.
One of the things that always bothered me about it is so many of them charge exorbitant prices for things, and I'm going, well, that means that somebody that is low income or economically challenged, however you want to put it, means they can't get saved. You know, that's.
Well, no, that's not that's not true. It just means that people have to find ways to uncover what was taken from them before they were born here, because that happened to everybody on this planet in ancient Earth history or in galactic history.
And I know
as long as you as an individual stays out of the negative emotions in trying to seek truth, and this is quite a challenge for people on Earth.
Yes, it is.
Then they will find those people and beings who don't work with negative emotions or subconscious drives at all. Because then they're going to be revealed really hidden truth that that will trigger something in them and help them recover. That if you're putting out a mixture of whatever you're doing on the internet, YouTube or anywhere else, book sales that has fear in it and not an optimistic thing to help change the world, they're supporting the negative conditions of this planet without realizing. And that's defeating what they're trying to do. So the reason I work with the primordial first sound behind all creation, which was never created by me as an individual, and which does not come or originate from this planet, is because it allows me to connect directly to the source beyond the void known to most Buddhist monks into the upper worlds where we all came from, where there is no negative and positive battle taking place. And working there allows people to begin to create ways to change the lower dimensions, even this backward planet Earth. People try to change it from Earth with Earth people, they will fail. Because you can't get a mass of people on this planet to work collectively together in any way.
That is so true.
And the reason for that is because they think erroneously that they have free will here. They do not. Here's what I mean by that. If a being on Earth living in a body does not remember what they are, what it's like, what it's shaped like, what you can do with it, consciously aware of what they are that is not physical, and if they don't know how to move that around the multidimensional universe, they don't have free will. Because they don't know who they are, where they came from, or what they knew before they found themselves on this planet with little or no memory intact. Something happened. Every single being on Earth knows something was done to them somewhere, somehow, that made them forget, because they go, I just know I used to know more than this. What's wrong? Two things are in the way of that. One, what was done to them as a being, not a body. Two, what was done to the genetic structure of genomes on the DNA on human bodies on Earth in an ancient past that shut down certain genomes so that people live 80 years, have trouble using higher faculties of being through that brain, through that body. So people on Earth say, whoa, we use 6 to 10% of our brain. That's what they're told here. And yet you have 100% of 100% of a fully developed brain. So why are people only using 6 to 10%? Because certain genomes in the DNA, their switches were turned on by tyrants at some point, off planet before people were brought here.
Is that done through frequency?
Well, yes, but it's done through the misuse of extraterrestrial science. Tyrants don't invent anything of any nature that's good for life. They don't invent weapons. They steal it from other people and then lord it over the people they stole it from if they can sneak around and get things like that. This has been true in galactic history, and those kinds of things obviously have always been policed, in a sense, by kind organizations, vast organizations of world systems that have kept the tyrant issue at bay to a large degree. For instance, on Earth, although tyrants snuck in here and subconsciously manipulated leaders on this planet, especially after World War II, that was also policed, and there's been a long process to undo that. That's come to the point we're at now, because the original purpose for establishing the National Security Act so that people could be not told the truth about, especially about extraterrestrials, and the reason for the CIA and all that came about after extraterrestrial beings and technologies either crashed or were disclosed to the public here. And this came about because beings of different natures, good and bad, were coming here, amazed that people would blow up hydrogen bombs in our own atmosphere just to test them. That is beyond insane to them.
It is. It's amazing.
So this drew a lot of attention here in the classified arena, and people know this, of course. They also know their launching computers were shut down when they attempted nuclear war. They know that too. And yet no one's tried to run our governments or take over the planet. No one can. Tyrant beings could try, but under treaty, they would go to war and would lose again if they tried that. Earth is like a Switzerland. It's under treaty. It's a 500,000-year-old treaty that puts it like a Switzerland, which means that particularly after poles flip here and people are wiped out on the surface, it's recolonized. And little places on the planet are allowed to be colonized by tyrants or benevolent races. Tyrants would bring their slaves here to do the dirty work, mining. Benevolent people would have a culture somewhere else on the planet for scientific research. Earth was always labeled, because of this phenomenon of polar flips, like a Switzerland. No one race was allowed to dominate or own it. That's kept it from evolving. It's kept beings on it from evolving over a long enough period of time so they could become like cultures out there that are hundreds of millions, if not billions of years old, on a planet that never flips its poles. And Earth is a particular enigma in creation because of this phenomenon.
What caused that phenomenon?
That caused some millions of years ago. It was caused when a planet was blown up in our solar system that became the asteroid belt circling between Mars and Jupiter.
Oh, okay.
And it's roughly, between the two planets, almost twice the distance between any other planet. So a planet was there. Planets move around the sun at, like, let's just take a figure, 50,000 miles an hour. Earth, you blow it up and it's in a magnetic field. Some things would get out, say, blow it, ruin the atmosphere on Mars, which it did. And others may have come to Earth and caused other catastrophes here, but it created an imbalance in the solar system. And Earth became one of these kind of planets.
Wow.
And then when a phenomena happens here where our solar system passes through another area of space, a big gas giant that comes in a perpendicular angle millions of miles from us is large enough to pull the poles over.
Wow.
That cycle has been stopped permanently.
Thank goodness.
You're not going to see people talk about this planet Nibiru and Planet X and coming here and doing, no. They're going to be, they better not hold their breath because they'll pass out of this life waiting for that one to happen. It's not going to. A lot has changed that could have happened that will not happen now. Polar flips were permanently suspended for this planet. So there won't be any more Iron Age to Golden Age here anymore for this world.
I'm very happy to hear that.
The Iron Age to Golden Age, in case you don't know it, that whole system was based on polar flips. Golden Age, people come here fresh with a new planet and everything's wonderful. And then over enough period of time, say over 100,000 years, influences from the stars and conflicts out there affect things, and it becomes an Iron Age, and very negative. And this planet's certainly in an Iron Age.
Yes. But
it's designated to become what people call a Golden Age. It's designated to become a spacefaring race among the stars with other races when the culture on the planet is liberated from some negative subconscious drives they're suffering from right now, so that they can make proper decisions collectively and be trusted to go out and play among the stars. When we do that, all the technology, cures for disease, turning on genomes, using 100% of your brain, telepathy, photographic memories, which are normal for most human beings outside of this planet right now, will be provided here at no charge. There's no money involved. But first, we have to be not nuts. You know, you can't go out there and take this classified, lying to everybody, classified space program out there among the stars and go out there and explore the universe, because space, the universe, the Milky Way and others, is already occupied by vast numbers of more advanced races, especially technologically, than we are. We're not going to take our little Earth ego trip out there with radioactive bombs and weapons and fire at the first thing that looks odd or threatening, because that's how Earth people are right now. And that is not going to be tolerated. So when I say that the Earth is quarantined in the solar system, it is not quarantined or by bad people. It's quarantined for our own sake until we can go through this transformation that's underway unexpectedly, until enough people can wake up enough with beings working with them when they're out of their bodies at night, which they all go out of their bodies. They put the body in the trance state called sleep, just like experts, but unconsciously they don't know how they're doing it, and then they just go out. And then they've never been trained on this planet growing up how to bring that awareness back, so they don't bring it back. They've got no training in the subconscious of growing up in this life that conditions them to think this is easy and effortless. Everything people hear is like, well, you can't leave your body, it's so hard. No, they do it all the time, just through daydreaming, and they don't even know they're doing it.
That's amazing, and you're usually discouraged from daydreaming when you're a child.
Oh, yeah. That's just a dream, nothing real in that.
Yes.
Parents do that to kids because of with nightmares and that kind of thing. And all nightmares are fears taken into the dream state with you when you leave the body. And it creates, through the misuse of the imagination, connections to things scrambled, both in your psyche and in negative situations. Which means, as beings, mature beings, or free beings, we're supposed to be utilizing the creative imagination in the correct one way, which is to intentionally create, invent, and bring into cultures that which is of an uplifting benefit to all life, on all worlds, on all levels. When we do that, we get to play in the multiverse as beings and know it.
That sounds like such a tall order.
Well, it would be a tall order, you're right. If people are left to their own devices on this planet, they would never succeed. The mass of people on this planet, and I'm talking about royal families and classified people and the mass of people, have all been manipulated without their awareness through the misuse of extraterrestrial science done by tyrants, often before they are ever sent to this world, sneakily and stuffed in a body here with no memory. Like, where do you hide political prisoners you've captured and you don't want the Galactic Alliance to know about it? Mask their energy signature, stick them in a body with no memory, and you don't even need guard towers. Because fear, when people leave this life, will drive them to reincarnate on Earth with no memory. They don't want to remember how they just died. And they'll want to reincarnate in something they feel secure in, which is a physical body. There's no such thing as security in a physical body, because we aren't physical bodies. You
That's
can't have security, because these grow old and you can't keep them. Duh, So my work has largely to do with helping people get back into control over their emotional or astral body and their mental body, which is 4 planes up from here. All your mind comes from a body you're running in a lifetime there, and you don't even remember it. Most people don't. And it's unconsciously, even it is unconsciously running a mental facility through the brain you have here. And the astral is running an emotional. So what's important is that people on Earth begin to recover what they're doing as a spherical being, as an atma, the real, what soul looks like that symbol above your head, which is round and whole and complete in its energy, but it's not nuclear, it's not made of molecules. It's like the God particle they've named in the CERN super collider in Switzerland. They know there's an energy in dark matter and out in space that does not work like the laws of physics should. And it's behind everything, and it's not nuclear.
And they can't control it, can
they? They don't know what to do with it. No, they just know it's there, which is good, because they're beginning to investigate an energy that they'd have to go into as a being in order to learn how to overview the physical matter, in order to make anti-gravity ships go faster than the speed of light. You've got to get the understanding of how the energy that comes from above this dimension goes into this dimension in order to do that. Beings that have mastered that are aware of going out of their body even when they're children. And they live in bodies and run them and have cultures and benevolent governments. And they get the average human being on another planet is, time they're 10, they have the equivalency of 10 PhDs to people here at 10. They have photographic memories. They're telepathic. They don't have these limitations. They don't have subconscious minds. They've not been messed with by tyrants, in other words. And we've never been alone in the universe. If we had been, this world would be dead right now, because nuclear war would have succeeded. So no, without interfering in governments directly, there are beings who shut down the launch computers on this world so that we can't have nuclear war, because that would be harmful to far more beings than live on this planet in parallel dimensions of the realities, and people in their ignorance and their negative fear that drives them on Earth may think in their egos states that they have the right to do this, but they don't. And the vast number of beings that work out in the universe in other dimensions and their master teachers are not going to tolerate nuclear war on this planet. We don't have the right to wield it even against ourselves.
So people don't have to worry about that sort of thing. That's that fear.
Waste of time. If you live your life worried about the future, you are trapped in a body on Earth, and you will die in fear.
And the other thing that we're taught that, we are our body, and we're not.
No. What are you going to do when this body dies? If you're your body, I guess you become worm food. Get cremated, you're just a bunch of ashes, and that's it. It doesn't make any sense to think that way. But there are governments and religions run by governments, even back to Rome and before that, that were set up to control people and keep them ignorant of who they are and what they know when they're out of their body until they die. That's a trap for the soul, for the atma. Clean, pure, simple. It is.
But we're all getting help now that will help change that.
Well, it's available, but individuals, because tyrants don't work forcing anything on anyone, the vibration has to raise energetically, and then people become more capable here on Earth to co-create and give their free will, or agree co-creatively to have beings that can help them out of this subconscious trap to work with them. The way they're doing that is approaching people when they're out of their body at night, when their body's in the trance state called sleep that they put it in without realizing how they did it. And then they're met by high or kind beings, that some of whom they're familiar with them, and they're made to feel really good. And then they can have a much more expanded state of consciousness in their true form, not this, and make correct decisions. And they can be helped to recover certain things. So when they wake up in the morning, they're just more enlightened, brighter, more capable. That's how you unravel these tight knots. You can't confront people on Earth directly from other Earth people to do that, because the people doing on Earth don't know how to do it, number one. And you can't do it from a physical body to a physical body because the implant or the subconscious thing that controls people isn't in the body. It's not in the brain. It's not a chip under the skin. It's deeper and more diabolical than that. People on Earth were working with these little chip things from extraterrestrial technology, microcircuits, to try to find a way, experimenting, well, I would say diabolically on our own populace out of desperation, to find a way to undo what was done to them without chips.
So everybody else will just be the guinea pigs in the meantime.
No, that's over. They don't do that anymore.
Oh, thank goodness for that.
Some people that were abducted in the early days, more than 20 years ago now, because that doesn't happen anymore either, were taken aboard and experimented on, and their memory wiped. That's an implant. That's just a superficial implant. It's not even the deeper one that was done to people. But it reinforces the one that was already in people before they were abducted, where they don't remember who they are, how they got here. And it just masks that memory, and then it distorts their life. It warps the nervous system. People get really in trouble, you know, after having been abducted. And so, like, it's like the Betty and Barney Hill story that was so popular, and they went to a reverse hypnosis regression therapist, got lucky, found the right one, and they were able to recover the memory that was suppressed, and their lives straightened out. They straightened out to be normal as they were before they were abducted, but it didn't free them to know who they are as a being. It didn't do any of that. So we're talking about this because people are operating out of present time. Even right now, they're talking about abductions and reptilians and in bases and all this stuff. They aren't there anymore because that was orchestrated from off planet. And beings that run governments and stuff here had to cooperate with that for their own good. Wasn't ever targeting them to harm anyone. But when they became aware they were being hoodwinked and misdirected and misused by beings they made a treaty with to get off-world technology, gradually they made an inroad to get safely out of that. And they're doing that now and making agreements with benevolent beings to get technology that will help liberate this planet from its unconscious stupidity. People are operating here with no memory of who they are, what they knew before they were born here, who they are as an atma, not a body. How can they make correct decisions operating that way? Well, you can't.
No.
We're lucky this planet's even working halfway, even functioning the way it is. Because what those planet works right now is not like other planets. The millions I know and have been to or are aware of, they don't work like this. They don't use money.
That's a big one.
Money's created by tyrants to brainwash people, to condition them to it, so you threaten to take it away and you control them.
Exactly.
There's no value in it. There's no precious metal backing any currency on this planet I know of. People are just used to using it, so everybody can get paid, and we see buy food, and here's a $5 bill, and here's your $4 and change, and here's your Tootsie Roll, and they'll do it. And if you don't have it, it says it's legal tender. It's bark from a tree, by the way, made into paper with special ink on it, and then, you know, that's it. Digits in a computer. There's really no such thing as anybody exchanging gold or platinum, or, you know, when they go to the grocery store, you'd have a tough time buying your groceries with a gold bullion or a Krugerrand or something, because people don't know what the value is, and exchange rate moves up and down through Wall Street. You'd have a tough time buying groceries with one of those until you turn it in and get paper for it. Then you can do it. That's the way Earth is. I mean, this has been all the way back to Rome and far before Rome. Money and the idea of money and its use was created off planet. It was not originated on this world. People pride themselves on thinking royal family bloodlines were originated on planet Earth. Well, you people evolved out of Cro-Magnon man and became rulers. No. How about no?
I laugh at that one all the time.
Everybody, these things were imported to this planet by tyrant races, and they would get control of a leader like Caesar in Rome just to get mining going on, ship it off planet. The leaders knew it, but the populace did not. And those cultures all came to an end because of breaking a treaty. I mean, it's a story and a history that people, when they know it and remember it, man, this world's going to change overnight. Because it isn't the history they think it is. And their history never originated on this planet. In the first place, human beings never evolved here. They just didn't.
That's
in this form.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
It's theory. It's taught by non-classified PhD people who aren't classified to know the truth about extraterrestrials, so they make the same mistakes of teaching theory in schools, and they conjecture out of theory that Cro-Magnon man and Neanderthal, both of which are extinct humanoid-type species, we did not come from them. We didn't come from monkeys. We didn't come from fish or amoebas out of the ocean either.
I always love that one.
We didn't evolve on this planet to this form. Back in Lemuria 100,000 years ago, if people in this level of the genetic evolution were there then. That predates Cro-Magnon man. That's only 100,000 years ago. And people in Lemuria came here from other worlds. They just did. There are billions of planets in this galaxy and billions of galaxies and 144 levels of that in the physical universe alone. Humans never evolved here. So the secret of how... Huh?
I just knew that wasn't true because it didn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
Like you said, I didn't know.
No.
I don't
Because
know.
all that's theory. There's no provable evidence anywhere in science that we ever evolved from amoebas that became fish that walked on fins and then stood upright. And there were dinosaurs and somehow they just vanished and then we just sprung out of the ground like a mushroom out of nowhere. No. Humans came here from other worlds after the dinosaurs were made extinct. Fact. It's not conjecture. It's not theory. It's the truth. Just because people on Earth won't want to handle it, can't accept it, that's not my problem. It's theirs. I'm here to help people get to the bottom of things that they once knew with certainty for themselves. That's the only motivation behind my work on this world. And it's why I came to this planet.
Well,
That's
I'm
it.
glad you did.
You know, people can be reactive all they want, throw stones at each other, make up stuff about me, do whatever they want. It won't affect me in any negative way whatsoever. But it will affect them in a negative way. Because they're throwing it at the wrong place and they're being negative and in fear. And by physical laws of karma of the physical universe, every action creates an equal but opposite reaction. And it comes back to them, not me. People that are busy throwing stones all over the place and at all the wrong places are being manipulated and controlled by tyrants on Earth, keeping them in doubt and fear. And that's not constructive. It just isn't.
So the benevolent beings are working with the tyrants that are on the planet as well.
Of course, naturally. And they're very afraid to let go of the truth. See, when I try to tell people the original construction of the National Security Act under Truman, the CIA lying to everybody, distorting everything about extraterrestrials, making it seem like, you know, people are quacks and that have experiences with them and all that. Control of radio and TV stations, especially after World War II, was done through a Cold War process with the Soviet Union using Nazi SS scientists who were pardoned and brought into both countries to show us how to do this. To keep the lid on extraterrestrial technology the Nazis had illegally acquired. That's the truth.
Wow.
And they have to tell the people this. You want some of that tea? You don't like iced tea. You like iced tea?
He acted like he was thirsty.
I think he wants to come up and joining us. Why don't you come up here? You know, come up and supervise like you always do. Go on up there. There you go. There you go. Get up there. There we go. Little cat is a great little soul traveler. I mean, he can get out of his body and do things that would amaze people on Earth. I go into the high worlds above the void with him, And one of the creatures who's not a human, who's a Dren named Etta, he's a very playful being, but he's also a master teacher, plays with Starlight all the time. They have a great time together. So he's an Atma running a kitty body. He is a soul, or what people on Earth call soul. If you ask most people what soul looks like and how it works, they haven't got a clue. Not a clue. They have faith or belief, but they don't really understand it consciously what it is or how to move it around in that first word, that first sound behind all creation. Because that's how we get around. And that energy that runs through all the multidimensional universe and all the parallel dimensions in each one, cross the emptiness of the void into the higher worlds where there is no negative nature whatsoever, all comes about because it is everywhere supporting the entire creation. It is in the dark matter in space, which is not nuclear. It fills the energy between galaxies. It's literally a living conscious energy, and we are in a higher level comprised out of it as beings. Like a drop of pure water individualized in a mighty ocean of the same thing, which is what you would call the supreme being, or the source, prime creator, as most races from the stars that are highly enlightened, spiritually and technologically refer to it, because they don't worship it. They respect it and each other. And that's all that's required.
That's what's missing on our planet today.
That's divine love, really. You can't say you could divinely love anything if all you can love is your own family, human beings, and not every race. You can't even love the greater amount of beings out there in many worlds and different kinds of bodies. And until you can do that, you cannot play in the multidimensional universe. There are ground rules to that. So people on Earth, whether they know it or not, are ultimately destined to become co-creators with that source. They don't know that now. They've been made to forget that. But that's really what the purpose of a human being or human woman is. To be a co-creator with that source, not a co-worshipper, a co-slave to a tyrant, propping themselves up to be the supreme being who demands worship and gives nothing in return but slavery and reincarnation. It comes from the beings that run the four lower dimensions where the dual current of positive and negative run. And they have been nothing but tyrants through ages. That's changing. They're changing. They're not being destroyed, they're being altered because they run an energy to support each plane from the first sound. So if you want to change the way the lower dimensions are on planet Earth, you don't destroy it to do it, because life on the surface of this planet has been destroyed many times, not the planet. And it doesn't correct or change anything, ever.
It seems like we have plenty of evidence of that, doesn't it?
If you look, yeah, if you do your research properly without fear, you'll see it.
Well,
if I bring something like the hue to the table, it is not owned or patented or possessed by any organization, religious or otherwise, on any planet, in any dimension, everywhere. There is no one culture that would even be allowed to claim they possess it. Because if they tried that, they would be in serious trouble. It is an energy that moves through and is not matter, and it cannot be possessed by anyone. No one being can claim ownership of it or that they created it. Collectively, yes, as the source itself. But no one of us created this what it does or how it works. But we can become fully consciously aware of what it does and how it works and move in it, travel on it faster than the speed of light, and go into any planet or any dimension we wish, as long as we can be trusted with what that is, awareness is, and what we do with what we create for the benefit of all life. If we can do that, then the door's open.
Well, we do have a long ways to go on this planet.
It seems that way, but remember, we're not alone.
Well, that's good.
If we were, we'd never get out of it. Or people would annihilate the surface again. No. We're not alone, and there are races, human and otherwise, very advanced that have the technology to transform a planet out of negativity into something altogether different. The technology is not the problem. That's ancient. It's getting the cooperation of beings on the planet to voluntarily, co-creatively ask for it. Only tyrants want to force their will on others. Let's put it this way. There's a new energy called a new ray in this divine spirit, what people call Holy Spirit, which is really the first sound which you can hear and see and move on once you know how, that is missing from religious books on the planet. It isn't a written word at all. It's an energy that flows through all creation and comes from a source, the same source we come from.
Would it be correct to say it's a vibration?
Yeah, but it's higher than frequency in molecular matter.
Okay. So that would be back to...
It's higher than astral, mental, causal, etheric, any of those, because it doesn't have a dual energy. The dual energy that splits off from the void known to most Buddhist monks, when it comes from worlds above it, goes into a, like a yin and a yang, that's supposed to be circling around each other in harmony with a third energy moving through it to create, so you don't create karma. If you operate from the lower laws and throw negative and positive things out in your imagination, it goes out into this omnipresent force, which is a co-creator with us, and it will produce both for you, and you trap yourself with it without knowing it. Tyrants know that. So we want to put out an energy that keeps them harmonized in the lower worlds, which takes some mastery, that has a third energy that is not matter running through it. And then you can create things here for the benefit of all life without coming subject to the laws of physics. Because the being is not made of matter, it's not nuclear, that has mastery over matter and dual currents. When beings remember that and recover that, then everything changes for them.
Well, I can say for the listeners that since I've been working with the hue, I have found that I am more readily recognize negative programs that I have running, that I am now able to shut off much more quickly, whereas in the past I might not have even realized what it was. But it just keeps getting better and better all the time.
Yeah. The hue was, and how to use it, how to work with the pineal gland, the center of the brain, and then get in and out of bodies and all that, was brought here millions of years ago to Earth under certain adepts' control or jurisdiction, and kept hidden from the tyrant rulers of this world for the most part throughout its history.
Oh, wow.
So they would train individuals in it secretly. Often if they were caught, they'd usually get killed or murdered, any of these teachers. So it remained pretty much off the books. It did not originate on this planet. It came from another planet in our solar system, from there out in our galaxy, and from there up in the dimensions. And it does not originate in the physical universe. Never did. Neither did you, or the listeners to this show. That they don't remember any of this on Earth is not surprising, considering how they grew up on this planet, around parents and governments and things that also do not know, misdirected, subconsciously in fear of the future, all of them. How can you create a better future for a planet like this if the people running it are in fear? If they're in fear of disclosure, what will happen to them? Will they be shot? Will everybody be pissed? Well, they would normally, but because of the way that it's being done to get them to disclose, it's safe for everyone. Because masses of people, when they understand that a manipulation of consciousness was done without the consent of the tyrant leaders on this planet, royal families, or even the hidden government, that they were more heavily manipulated than you were, then people begin to understand. They can let go of revenge and hatred and anger, because until we do that as a mass of people on this planet, we cannot play out among the stars in the physical universe like Star Trek portrays, 1,000 years from now with radioactive warp cores. And, no, because they don't use that kind of energy. Propulsion systems out tailpipes don't work to get you around the galaxy. They're limited into the laws of physical matter. They don't even go into parallel dimensions using technology like that. I suppose it's possible to have some kind of polluting stuff coming out tailpipes and then put a warp magnetic field around a craft and have it go somewhere. But you're just polluting other people's space using driven that way, and they're not going to tolerate it. If they already don't use that stuff and know better, then why would they allow us to do it? Well, they wouldn't, would they? Would you?
No,
No.
definitely not.
So when disclosure, full disclosure happens here, it will be about the truth about extraterrestrial contact with hidden leaders on this planet, governments and otherwise, what treaties were made, what went wrong, what's going right, and people will become aware of the numbers of races that are out there that have come here, and then ships will land all over this planet and bring technicians, highly trained people, human and otherwise. People won't be in terror because they're already prepared through the film industry to, understand about extraterrestrials. Of course, a lot of the films, not all, portray beings from other worlds like big cockroaches coming here to wipe everybody out. What people on Earth do not understand is that tyrant races among the stars who would kill you and eat you that were out there in the past don't go to worlds to blow up their culture or their infrastructure. That's not how they work. They want to create controllable slaves to do the dirty work to get rare earth minerals and other things shipped off world to them in a secret space program for the last 65 years to get their more antiquated technology, which is what actually happened here.
Wow. So that's what the secret space program was really all about.
Well, I figure at the time of someone like Truman and Eisenhower, they're good men. Eisenhower was a good man. He would never have signed such a treaty, but he did against his better judgment because he was subconsciously manipulated without his knowledge. They wouldn't do it otherwise. I do not blame him for how they were influenced, because this kind of implantation doesn't affect your intelligence or your sense of humor. It just misdirects decisions you make on a subconscious level out of terror of the future in some way or other. And that has to go in leaders and in people here if they want to have a free planet and really have this planet be transformed and change. Because the planetary culture where it is now is capable, it's ready to do that. So number one, tyrants don't come here and blow up all the cities and wreck everything like Hollywood portrays. Some films might make money at the box office, but it's not true. They steal cultures from the inside out, from influencing the most elite, arrogant people to get in bed with them because they promise them stuff they will never give them. And then they get them to control political leaders, and then they control the masses and the media. You take over a planet that way. Then you wipe out the majority of people. Too many people here for them to control. So you want to bring it down to 500 million. That's 6.5 billion dead. And that's what they were planning through Hitler to do. It didn't work. It didn't work because of what people on Earth did. It didn't work because people from outside this world were not going to tolerate it. Problem is that when the war ended, these little SS-dedicated Nazi worshippers of Hitler, scientists, were brought into both countries. Extraterrestrial technology they found split up into both countries, Russia and the United States. And the little gray guys that were hooked psychically to their scientists came into both countries with them to try to still carry this out. And that has not worked because fortunately, we're not alone in the universe, and this has been policed, and we've been stopped many times from annihilating ourselves because what's been done to people that would push the button without thinking twice about it are not in control of free will at all. And the change in consciousness out there amongst beings is such that they recognize that Earth and the people that are here unconscious come from out there, and some of them are friends and relatives they've missed. And they have a responsibility to see to it that this place does not get destroyed because of the manipulation of abusive tyrants from other worlds who never had the right in the first place. So they're taking more of a stand in this planet than they ever have before. Some people already know who their relatives are in other worlds. And some of the people I work with now have been recognized by those people because they can read beyond this massed energy signature thing now. And they couldn't before. So they're finding out who we are and what we are on this planet. And that's not resources that should be wasted or that would be allowed to be wasted. Because what would it be like when people on this world, worldwide, are set free from this subconscious nonsense once and for all? What kind of contributions will they make to the entire creation? That's what they're looking at now.
Thank goodness, and I believe it would be absolutely phenomenal.
Well, I don't work in any of these other areas on Earth. I don't debate with people and justify what I do or try to tell them, talk with them, and they're trying to convince me what they think is true on belief or faith about New Age or Golden Age or twin flames or any of the stuff that have been brought up here to believe in. Or reptilians, they were reptilians, they're going to come back and do this and that. No. There's no Sumerian culture. That was removed also at one time. Mayan and Aztec cultures were run by tyrants from other worlds. They were mining colonies, so was Sumeria. And after a while, they're just like doing something so diabolical, they're policed out of here. There was never a will out among the stars to change this world and make it liberated like these other planets are until fairly recently. Something changed out in creation in the high worlds and regarding what I call the Mayans also call the experiment of evil on Earth. Because it's a failed experiment, it backfired, it doesn't work, and it never did in billions of years. So we might as well get rid of it and replace it with energy and consciousness that actually works, to motivate people to only create that which will be uplifting benefit to all life. Because that's what we're supposed to be doing. Let's go on a little journey.
Yes.
Enough of this chit chat, but when I talk, it's telepathic. It's aimed telepathically at beings, at the white core of their being, not at their psyche or their brain or their body. It's done intentionally to help them recover. So I go into these hues, I take them up certain tone levels, and what it's designed to do is shut down subconscious negative influences in the physical body they're running, in the astral life they're living, in a body they don't even remember they have, where all emotion comes from, the causal, mental, where the mind comes from, and etheric. 4 lower dimensions below the void known to the Buddhist monks, because beyond that are vast areas that do not work in a positive and negative stream. They have one energy field there, and it works on cause but no effect, because there is no negative nature there from the lower worlds. Nobody steps on anybody's toes. That doesn't mean that the beings there ever had the consciousness or will to remove the experiment of evil, positive and negative, that controls beings the way it does in the lower dimensions now. But fairly recently, that all changed up there. So now it's being implemented down here. In the past, long ago, beings were drawn out of bodies and put up in the upper worlds, and they wiped out the entire 4 lower dimensions, all 140 parallel dimensions in each one, obliterated it back into energy, then rebuilt it and stuck everybody back there with this cattle prodding devil kind of stuff, and it didn't work. And they've done that several times already, and it hasn't worked. So something has to change that will allow the structure of creation to remain intact and move it in a new direction, finally.
Yes.
And the reason for that is to get the lower dimensions, the ones we live in, to be mirrors of what's in the upper worlds, in a harmonized positive negative stream, surrounded by a third energy that does not allow beings to split it in their consciousness into 2 areas of imagination, positive for the future and negative for the future. They're opposed, and they ground energy to the earth, and people remain unconscious in bodies this way. So that's got to stop. And that means people on earth need to recover their ability they once had and gain some wisdom they never had in order to use this correctly. I can only share the truth with people. I can't make them do it. I'm not a tyrant. My lineage comes from the Pleiades area before this, then on the other side of the galaxy on a planet called Telemedea, and then out in the Andromeda galaxy, and before that in numbers of others, and up through the dimensions. Many billions of years. Most people on Earth are billions of years old as beings relative to physical matter, but they're timeless in the sense of what they are as the atma, soul, the real being, because everybody came from the source originally. They were there before the lower dimensions were ever created, and they have no idea any of this is true today. That's all recoverable, actually, under the right conditions. So we'll go on a little journey, and all this is me guiding people a little bit. I'm not putting myself above other people. I do not do that. The beings that I work with, master teachers among the stars and from different dimensions, Ambassador Turellian from the Say Rays, a little Dren named Etta, and all the beings I work with out there, do not do that. Ambassador Turellian and the whole Say Rays race, which is where we get our human genomes from and our DNA, because they were great scientists and spiritually highly evolved back then. They developed and brought into existence many of the galaxies, this galaxies and others, races that are now spacefaring, by developing genetic forms that the atma, the true being, could run consciously and get higher faculties to work through that nervous system and that brain. So you'd have an enlightened human being, a being running a body that's capable of expressing enlightened awareness. This is what they did. On many worlds, through the astral emotional plane and the physical, they could cross between those two. The only race I know of that could do it as a race in history. And then 1 billion years ago, they immortalized their bodies, and they didn't make their bodies 36 and healthy forever. They dematerialized them and absorbed them into one of the teardrops that's out in the layer of that atma and stored it there. And they can, because they're not matter, they can manifest matter in that form, that DNA structure saved. And it appears, they carry out a mission, shake your hand. When they're done, they dematerialize and put it. That's real immortalization of a body. And they did that 1 billion years ago. So they're pretty evolved. And yet they do not lord themselves over other people. Only tyrants do that. They see the potential, Ambassador Turellian, the Say Rays, that we are on this planet, liberated. They know what it can be. And they're beginning to help resolve things, because after they were done bringing a lot of races up to bipedal and more advanced and different races on different planets, and they were spacefaring, they departed this galaxy. They departed the whole scene, walked away to see what we would do with it. And I think everybody knows what we've done with it is not a pretty picture. And now they're returning to this scene here to help correct this problem, because they have a change in consciousness, are working with a new energy now that gives them the ability to do that. Well, 1 second. That's okay. Let's go on this journey to give a little background on things that people on Earth normally have no comprehension about it at all. What people call the Pleiades and Orion, all these different things out there in our galaxy, the races that were brought up into this capability long ago, all the races people have talked about on the internet, good and bad, were originally brought into that developed state that Atmas could run by the Say Rays. Back then, none of those races were tyrant races. That happened after they departed this scene. This background helps people comprehend, and what we do in these journeys to help them visualize being again the multidimensional capable beings they are. if I go and show people what it's like to be on another planet, like Nerexalum, way past the seven sisters of the Pleiades, down deep in the stars in that area of space, or some other world, or to the astral level, or above the void to the higher worlds. When we go on these journeys, we do it so people can begin to remember how to see where these places are, what they look like. Because the truth is, until a being can visualize where they want to go like that, it sends it out into this first word, this sound that supports this energy that floats under everything. And it co-creates where we send it. But it can't take us anywhere into free will if we don't remember how to tell it how to do it. It just sits there and won't do anything for you. So you see, it's imperative that people recover their ability to imagine properly, because imagination, which is really the ability to see into the multidimensional universe, cannot be done from the body or the physical eyes. In an earth body, that's impossible. The being that's running this body, that's spherical, can do that easily. And the first step is for people to begin to remember what they are that isn't this. But they're never going to be able to do it. Okay. When I go into the hue, just so people understand, it isn't being done just for Gail or the listeners. It's being sent out to the entire planet and even past the planet off-world. And when I do it, the beings I work with hear it. And we go join them, usually above the planet in orbit as beings, and we go on a journey to begin to remember how we really are. And that's the reason I do this. It's the only reason I do it. There's no money involved in these radio shows. I don't charge anything. Maybe it'll make sense to people more as they begin to remember more themselves. And then they'll stop throwing stones at each other. And then they can get help in ways that are most wondrous. So let me preface that before we go into this journey. When I start the hue, it shuts down the subconscious negative things in the physical mind you grew up with, the astral emotional life you're living where all emotion comes from, and the next division above the physical, causal, mental, and etheric. And it gets those forms that you're not aware of, aware, less selfish and aware of each other and helping you here. Because most people's higher selves aren't really helping them like people think. They're living in higher relative matter, doing greater things, and they could usually care less about you here. Subconsciously, there's an energy flowing from them to you, which gives you the mental ability and emotions you grow up with. They don't come from the brain in the first place. So we want to leave all negative fears of the future, whatever they may be, on the side, in computer disks, in imagination, on the bed, on the floor, all around you. And we're going to put the body into the physical trance state called sleep. You people on Earth do it every night like experts without realizing really consciously what it is you're doing. Most people. You are causing the pineal gland in the center of the brain to begin to secrete certain things, serotonin, melatonin, that put the body on automatic, run the heart, run the lungs, run the blood flow while you're gone on a journey. You did not grow up in a culture on this planet being taught by parents or PhDs that are non-classified or governments anything about any of this. There's nothing in your brain you grew up with on Earth that's programmed there for you to be comfortable with or know how to use this stuff. So it has to come to you somehow. It's at the core of your being, and it can be awoken, recovered, recalled, awakened. Because that core of that being actually has mastery over all forms of positive and negative, misuse of technology, beings in or out of bodies, negative or anything else. It has mastery over the lower plane energies. But it has been manipulated and made to forget and doubt that. So it doesn't use its higher faculties. What we're doing is turning on and utilizing higher faculties in this process. When I describe a place where we're going and you see it, with your eyes closed. Your physical eyes are off. Understand this. Your brain is off. And then you go and see what this is I'm describing, the real you. The reason these are recorded is because then they can be played back later by anybody on earth that hears them. And they can go on this journey again and pay attention to details and begin to remember. I will begin these shoes now. Being consciously aware out of your body is easy. It takes no effort. Effort is involved in fear, doubt, speculation, theory, uncertainty. It creates resistance, both in the body and in the field around you as a being. We don't work with it. We don't work with negative emotions. We leave them turned off, with the body in the trance state called sleep, safe, protected. There's an energy connection telepathically from the core, white core of your being as an atma to the pineal gland in the center of the human brain that runs things while you're out traveling. Everyone does it. They're like experts all over the planet, gods clothed in rags, getting out of their body every night and bringing no memory or very little back when they wake that body up in the morning. Why should they know how to do it? They weren't trained from birth anything about this. Doesn't matter what age a person's body is, the being is ageless, and it can begin to recover all of this. Once they hear it, once it crosses their path, something gets stimulated, gets turned on. Magically, but not by magic, by higher science, by a higher knowing, direct perception and understanding of how things work on different dimensional levels. When you imagine a beautiful butterfly landing on a flower, and you call it daydreaming, you're sitting in a classroom or you're in an office, and you're bored and you look out the window, you imagine being on that ski trip or up in the mountains. Even with your eyes open looking out the window, the eyes will see what's out the window. But something else, the real you, sees the ski trip or the ocean or the mountains that you're idly imagining. The brain does not see this. The brain is connected to physical eyes. And when the eyes are shut down or turned off or you close them, they are not working at all. So when you see these things, the real you is seeing them somewhere in creation on some dimension, either on Earth, parallel dimensions of Earth, or in higher realities, or on the worlds. This is one of the first things I endeavor to get across to people who don't remember, that the imagination does not come from the brain of a human being. There's no motion picture camera in the brain cells or a projector screen through which you can visualize things. That's not the purpose or function of the brain at all. So it's you, the being, that sees these things. Being consciously aware of this for the first time changes everything. It's easy to be out of your body because you do it every night. And you do it effortlessly. Put it down, you identify with the body. Oh, I'm going to sleep. You go unconscious, it starts snoring, and you're out. And no one can even yell at you until they do enough of it, wakes you up and pulls you back in the body. And then you open its eyes and get it working again. So that means everybody's an expert in putting the body to sleep and leaving it without knowing they're doing it on this planet, Earth. The first step to knowing something is to remember that you're doing this, even if you're not yet aware of how you're doing it. The hue begins to connect the core, the white core of the atma, or soul, the real being, to that energy field that is not matter that runs through all creation and supports it. It connects into it and then to the very source, prime creator, supreme being, whatever you call it, below the tyrants that run the four lower dimensions, and they're being changed now. Cross the void, because there are many worlds and dimensions above that that don't work with the split current, positive and negative, illusion. And then it goes up the planes even higher to the source itself. And as the atma, we all come from there, which means we never were and never have been matter, atomic energy, atoms and protons and nucleons and quarks and quasars and all that stuff. Beings that create planets and suns that are spherical. Do it patterning it after the way they are, the way they look. That's why they're round. Funny enough. And the beings that work with maintaining the mechanics of creation, galaxies and suns and planets and stars and nuclear fusion and reaction and all that stuff, fission, whatever they want to call it, planets balanced around a sun and around a nuclear cluster of masses of stars and a black hole and the void of space and dark matter, which really is bright light with a gold tinge if you look at it with the perception of the atma and not with physical eyes. Because when you look through astronomical telescopes or at photographs, long exposure of deep space and galaxies, it looks like there's a black void between everything. But that's because physical eyes and human beings, particularly on Earth, cannot see above a certain spectrum into that, so it appears black. It really isn't. Scientists on Earth today know it's not black. It's just not observable with physical eyes. They know it's energy. It fills all the void, so-called, of space between everything. And it goes up in the higher dimensions. It just operates at different frequencies to sustain each dimensional level. But it's one energy, comes from a certain source, just like we do. Imagine being above your body now, looking down on it from your ceiling. If you can do it from above the house and look right through, like you have a telescopic lens vision. You can see right through the matter that makes up your roof and see your body sitting there in a chair, lying down, listening to my voice, and you can see your body and you send kindness to it, because the real you is running that body. It is not a physical body, but it's running that physical body. Imagine yourself being in the atmosphere above where you live, 5,000 feet. And if it's night and dark wherever you are in the world, you will see it as if it was light, like you have night vision goggles on. And you'll see the stars in space at the same time. And then you can see the atmosphere that's oxygen. And you can see a white field of light with a golden tinge to it moving behind it. And you're floating there in it as a spherical shaped being. It has a white core. It goes through the spectrum of color. Remember, this is not matter, as it's known on Earth. To a kind of a yellow, to a kind of an orange layer, to a kind of a green, and then blue and lavender and violet. There's a golden energy field around it. And it has the capability to imagine into this omnipresent field of energy and go anywhere it wishes. And that field of energy will co-create getting you there. We're meant to be co-creators with that. I don't use the word Holy Spirit because it's been so abused and distorted by people on earth and misused by everyone almost for money or power or something. I just don't use it. It's an omnipresent field of energy that is conscious. It is not an individual being like we are, but we are comprised of the same energy of it, but not on the physical level where its vibration is lowered, but from the source itself. And that we came into existence before time and space was created. So how old are you? Okay. In the atmosphere above the, wherever you are at 5,000 feet, if you look around you now, you can begin to see or imagine, you're really seeing, a number of beings. Whoever you are on earth, there is a male and a female, masculine and feminine being, kind, wondrous, floating in the atmosphere beside you, out of kindness, out of free will, to help you keep your primary subconscious and other implants of their negative nature shut off while you go on this journey. That is why they are there. They are not from Earth. They did not grow up on the planet Earth. They do not have subconscious minds. And then you're going to see a friend of mine appear behind us. And you're going to see an 18-foot tall human form appear, hovering in front of a very bright spherical atma like we are, a little brighter than we are. It's a bit more ancient in awareness. And it looks like a being with a beautiful Greek-like robe and sandals and golden blonde hair and big eyes, big blue eyes, crystal blue, that are a little larger than humans, and pointed ears. And he's just standing there with his thumbs up. He's got a great sense of humor. And he's going with us on this journey because he sees the potential in all of us, what we will do and what we will be when this tight knot is unraveled, we call a subconscious mind. And then he points upward. And you find yourself now hovering in space in orbit above the planet, not as a body. You don't need to breathe. You aren't affected by radiation or cold or heat. And you are floating in space with many other beings. And when you look at what supposedly is the black void of space as the atma, you see that every single inch of space everywhere between the planet Earth, with its polar ice caps, and the moon with craters circling it, doesn't turn on its axis, and billions of stars around you, our own sun, you can see that what exists between all those things is a white light with a golden tinge. The Atma can see this. It's on a higher frequency than human eyes can detect. There are electronic instruments that can see it, infrared and ultraviolet and all these other vibrational rates. The speed of light, as people know it on Earth, is limited to their perceptions, the limitations of their physical eyes that can detect it. But it is not the limit of light in any other creation. And it isn't limited to how many hundreds of thousands of miles per second it travels. Just one level of it is limited that way, but not all the levels of it. There are interdimensional doorways, many on Earth and out in space and throughout the galaxies, that connect different points in space-time in the lower dimensions together. And if you travel in a craft through them, you get vast distances quite quickly. And that's one way to do it. There are also craft that circumnavigate far beyond the speed of light because the molecular time rate of their craft is accelerated. It's not one of these things where everything slows down, everybody's 100 years, and they're gone for 2 weeks to come back to Earth and everything's 100 years older. That would be true if you stayed within the limits of what they think the speed of light is. But it's not true in the way that beings get around out in the universe outside of Earth. And they do not use nuclear power, radioactive isotopes at all. They are illegal. So what is the energy they use? The more advanced races out there use an energy that's in the universe, funnel it through their device or their craft to get around from point A to point B without using energy or polluting anything. To understand how that works, a being has to be in a higher level, look down on this dimension and understand how it works from there. Because it involves the use of higher energy applied to a lower frequency. You're in space, and then you can see Gail has a man and a woman next to him, and they manifest a physical form that looks like us on Earth, but there's a sphere hovering behind them, so it's an energetic projection of what they look like on their planet, their ship, wherever they are. Kind, brilliant, loving. And you feel good in their presence. They're not tyrants. There's Tyrellian hovering in the center, and we're circled around him, and I'm by his side. And there are 4 master teachers here, which are master teachers of the Galactic Interdimensional Alliance of Free Worlds races that people on Earth don't yet know about. They're not involved in the UFO community or disclosure community here. Yet the Say-Rays are not either. That's okay. This isn't about one-upsmanship. This isn't about competition. This is about truth on an interdimensional, a multidimensional scale. If you want freedom as a being, and you want to play among the stars, then one thing is required. We must know how to create properly with others out there in an uplifting, constructive manner, period. One master teacher has a short cropped curly black beard. This shows you what his physical body, he's immortalized, looks like. Short curly hair, swarthy skin, maroon robe, a staff in his hand, which he always carries, which is crystalline like quartz, and has a Egyptian ankh, like a cross with an oval and a hole in it. And it's a device, and it's utilized with 2 other crystals that are brought together at a certain point to take a student who's prepared to the realm of Prime Creator, what beings from other worlds call the Source, where they become a master teacher in their own right. And this is the destiny of all human beings, to become conscious, capable co-creators with that Source. There's another one that has a slightly pale blue skin, 6 feet tall, beautiful long shiny black hair, beautiful green, emerald green eyes, pointed ears like an elf. And he's lifting up his hand to show little webs between his fingers, little tiny gill slits under his neck that you wouldn't even notice were there if you didn't lift his neck up. These are human beings. from a world called Oceania. It is on the other side of the Milky Way galaxy, in the third parallel dimension from the world you know. And they can breathe underwater or on land. Their world is mostly water-covered, non-polluted, some small islands around the equator with domed cities on them. And he is a master teacher. There are two women master teachers here. One that looks like she's from India on Earth. Another one with honey blonde hair, about 36, both lovely ladies. They have actual physical bodies they've immortalized and run, but they are actually the round spherical being you see above those bodies running them. This is enlightening for people to get this perspective, because you won't be told this on Earth anywhere. Not yet. There is also a group, over 100 of these master teachers, men and women, with spheres hovering above body forms they have floating in space. They're energetic forms. They're not physical bodies, actually. They look like they're physical bodies. And you can tell they're of different dress, skin colors, and eye colors, and hair, and some bald, and different races from all over. So when you look at them, they're simply on this journey to join us, to experience what we experience. Because people on Earth, to them, it's amazing that anybody from Earth could ever get out here and do this. And it's a phenomena to them, and they're learning from it. We could learn great things from them. They're also learning from us. Okay. When you look down at the Earth now, you can see that there is a change in the planet from polar ice caps to one without polar ice caps. And there's a big continent centered over the equator from the left hemisphere to the right, and down on the bottom of it, because it goes down like this and up like that, it's about 2/3 of the way towards the South Pole, and there's a crescent-shaped emerald green beach at the bottom of that continent. That Earth is in a higher molecular time rate, third parallel dimension up from the Earth you're familiar with, even in the same space where the Earth is you know of. But it vibrates at a higher molecular time rate. It is in a higher parallel dimension of the physical universe. When you look over and see where the moon is now, you see that it's turning on its axis. It has atmosphere and lakes and rivers and mountains, 5 domed cities covering 3 gold pyramids with quartz caps under each one. And as it turns on its axis, you can see another one on the backside. And it is moving around this Earth. This has been here for ages. What is on that continent, which is still called Mu or Lemriel today, and on the continent that's 2/3 its size in the backside, still called Atma, in the common tongue Atlantis, is on a planetary system that never flipped its poles like it does where we are, or did. And this is a prototype. You're being shown this because that is what the Earth and the moon will become when we're back to our normal selves. Find yourself all the way down in that atmosphere, hovering above that emerald green beach. It's curved like a half moon. And you look close at the sand and you can see that it's made of little polished, clear, pure emerald crystals. And they're glowing with about a foot of light. It's important to get grounded into a world that is pure without pollutants, that's run by beings who are highly evolved before we go on any further journeys, so that you have a basis to work from on the Earth you're familiar with that is not involved in the negativity that fills the planet's atmosphere on the Earth you know of for now. And you feel bare feet sinking down in the emerald green sand, which is a body form you're manifesting from the white core of the sphere of your being that's hovering above it. And that energy moves up your legs, it's soothing, up through your form, to the top of your head, and you look up smiling, and you see the spherical form of yourself hovering there. It goes up into the white core, and you move it out into the green layer, where it turns on certain teardrop shape, self-effulgent or self-luminous lights. These are not matter. They are higher faculties. And they turn on. You can see there's a field of energy a transparent field of energy like glass that's surrounding your being. That is artificial. That is the source of subconscious negative programming. And some of it's being that shows you different terrorizing images of your past. They're being erased. And you can see through windows in that area around your being into the universe clearly, so you can know things again. This begins a process of recovery, recall. That field of energy is made of matter. And it can go only as far as some of the material planes. When you go across the void known to most Buddhist monks into the higher worlds, that is all dropped. You cannot take anything of any negative nature across that void whatsoever. So we have to discover and recover and learn how to leave that stuff behind. It's good to leave it turned off, back with the body back on earth that's in the trance state. You pick it up again when you get back there and discover how to master it. When you're in this state above the earth, looking at this parallel dimension world, or putting your feet in the sand down on that continent, you're actually doing it as you see it. Doubt and fear and uncertainty about all this comes back into your consciousness when you pick up some of those negative programs and they get turned on by the habit you may have of seeing negative things in the future. Turns them right on. So this is one way, and a primary way, to begin to get control over your emotional and mental faculties on earth, to stop agreeing with and stop contributing to all the fear of the future that's being promoted deliberately on the internet and on radio stations all over the world. That too is coming to an end. As the beings change that are doing it now and don't want to do it anymore, disclosure will become a reality on this planet. The beings I work with are in vast numbers, are moving things in that direction. The people on earth who think they have free will that would destroy this place really don't have free will, and they don't have the right to do that. So things are being changed. Then you find yourself back hovering above your body, wherever you are on earth, remembering this experience as the atma. The energies, the green energy that came up into your being is about recall and remembering. Send it down through the pineal gland into your brain. Turn on some of those brain cells. Let it run through your skull, out through your being, and down into the planet. There are 3 large pyramids that are not made of matter. Classified people know about them. There's one hovering in the asteroid field between Mars and Jupiter. They can't affect in any way. And they are moving energy that is not threatening anyone, but it is changing consciousness. There are 2 on the bottom of Earth's deepest oceans and 1 inside a mountain in the Himalayas. There are those like these devices appearing between stars throughout our galaxy. And they're designed to do one thing and move in only one direction. The green energy that went through your being and flows for your benefit through you and then connects to these pyramids continues out the top of them, out into the planet's atmosphere, and then out into space. Doing this begins to have you become a co-creator with the source from Earth to liberate this planet, to co-create its transformation, which is required. We're all in this together. So there's an old saying goes in Canada, we're all in this together. Keep your stick on the ice. I'm rooting for you, so to speak. Let this nature of respect for all life, which is very loving, fill your being as you slowly open your eyes. That's how we do this downtown on other worlds, so to speak. You can, let me get your mic on there, Gail, because I had to mute it because there was some feedback. Okay, we're back on. Anything you wish to ask or maybe share with your audience, or
Just that it's such a wonderful experience to do this. And
yeah, it is for me. I'm in a privileged position on this planet at this time to act as a kind of a guide with Torellian and others that work with me from the Galactic Alliance and from the master teachers that work with them, most of whom the people on Earth have never heard about, don't know anything about yet, to help people recover how to visualize and get around and recover what they used to know before it was taken from them without their consent, before they found themselves incarnated on this planet with little or no memory intact.
I would like to share with people too that if they listen to these journeys again, every time you do it, it gets better. You see more. And it's like exercising a muscle, really, in a lot of ways.
Exactly. And if you don't know the muscles exist, how are you going to turn them on? If you don't know the light switch is there, you're never going to see light in that room. This is kind of like what it is. It's always been there, but people have been terrified to touch it, to turn it on, and because there's misdirected artificial programs that are trying to terrorize them from doing it. So it takes some courage to step in this direction. But once you do, it's not reversible.
And I can tell the audience, you won't regret it if you do.
My recommendation for everyone, too, is that when they play this back, should they do it, find a time when you can be undisturbed for an hour somewhere. Put headphones on, no children, no pets, nothing. Play it again, and then go into the hue up tones like I did. Try it. You're going to be uplifted. There is no negative nature in the hue whatsoever, so it can't hurt your heart, make your nervous system funny. That's just people attached to seeing fear, trying to move it into the hue, and the hue rejects it. It won't do it. You can't move anything with fear or negative emotions in the hue. It does not work with them at all.
Such a feeling of peace and tranquility.
I agree. I mean, if you do it next time when you play this back, get a notepad or a little cheap Radio Shack microphone, voice active recorder, whatever. And when you go through it, after doing the hue and getting your body in the trance state called sleep, which you do every night, so don't think it's hard, it isn't. You can be aware of the body and be aware of what you're doing in other realities at the same time. That's okay too. You don't have to be completely unaware of the physical body in order to be out of your body. It's better that you have some awareness of it because you keep it running. It's okay. But when you do it and you're in the right vibe, close one eye. In other words, open just one eye. Keep one closed and then take notes while you're listening the second time, and you'll get a lot of detail. You'll remember a lot more. Because when the eye's open biscopular, shuts off that connection. When you leave one open and one closed, the connection remains, but you can also work in the physical universe. It's a technique I discovered quite by accident a long time ago. I'm sharing it with you now because it works.
That's awesome. I'll have to try that. I can only do it with one eye.
Yeah, just keep the one, and then if you move, don't open the other eye and then close this one because it'll cut it off. Just keep one closed comfortably, keep one open, and you'll find that if you can get your body to do this when you wake up in the morning, you'll be able to bring back the awareness of what you were doing and download it into your physical brain and consciousness, and you'll remember.
I'm working on that one. It's like just get up and oh, wait, I forgot.
Well, I'm going to go now, so I want to wish everybody pleasant dreams and great journeys, and that means everybody on Earth. I don't care if they're throwing stones at me or other people. This work is for their benefit, and that's it. And they're going to find it out eventually anyway, so pleasant dreams.
Same here, and thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Scott.
Okay.